Hey guys, this is a Blu-ray update, and I haven't done one of these since March of last year. So as you can imagine, I have a lot of titles to go over with you guys. Um, and yeah, over the past year and a half of my life, I haven't been very active on my channel. I've mostly only put out unboxings. Um, and there have just been a lot of changes, new things in my life. Nothing bad, but just more responsibilities that have taken my time away from being able to do this. But I do want to be more active on here again. I want to make the time to do more videos other than just unboxings. So I hope that this Blu-ray update over the long holiday weekend, this can be a good start to me just being more active on my channel again, getting out more videos like this where you guys can see me, I can interact with you on a facial level. But yeah, I hope this can be a good start to getting back on the right track to being more consistent and more active on my channel. So as my previous updates have worked, these are going to be all the titles that I've watched since my last update. Not all of these titles are titles that I've necessarily picked up since my last update. Some of them have been in my collection for years, but I just haven't gone around to watching them until now. And on the flip side of that, these are not all of the titles that I picked up since the last update. There are more titles that I've picked up. I just haven't gotten around to watching them, so I'll have to save those for the next update. But let's not waste any more time. And first I'm going to show you guys a couple of pops that I've picked up. Oh, and one more thing I wanted to mention. This is, not a new movie room, but this is where I'm going to be shooting my videos. So I put up a couple of posters back there. I hope you guys like them. That Civil War poster there in the middle. Actually, all three of these posters I got from Disney Movie Rewards over the years. Civil War, obviously, being the most recent one. But yeah, I really like them, and hope you guys like the little backdrop. I also got some pops up there on the shelf. There's actually another shelf above that with a couple more things. I don't know if you guys can make them out, but just want to point that out. Let me know what you think about it. I hope you guys like the backdrop. And also, add me on Facebook. I got a Facebook just for this channel. It's linked in the description, so add me on there so we can keep in touch and just interact through that medium. But yeah, I'll show you guys some pops that I've picked up since my last update, and in my past few updates I've done the same thing. So we're gonna keep with tradition, and this is the Logan pop. I don't believe this was released as part of the promotion for the movie. You can see the set there, and none of those are characters from the movie, but this was on clearance at Best Buy for like $5. Well, $7, I think. Since then it's dropped to like $4, but pretty cheap. And this is actually a pop that I do really enjoy. Most of my pops I've gone through Disney Movie Rewards, like the posters. I don't spend money on these things. I don't really care for them in that way. Although I do have one here that I'm going to show you that I did buy with my own money. But and aside from this one, but this one I did really like, and I bought it after I saw Logan. Really liked Logan, so wanted this pop. And I love his Alaskan jacket there with the internal fur coating. I really like that. So just a pretty badass looking pop. And then this next one, not crazy about it, but it was one I got through Disney Movie Rewards, so I didn't pay anything for it. And this is the Doctor Strange pop. He's got his little cape. He's extending his hand there. I wish he was doing the hand symbol when he casts his magic. But the best thing about this pop is the goatee right there. Look at that detail. And then the next pop, this is one that I just kind of want to throw in the dumpster, and that's Kong Skull Island, the big 6-inch pop. Picked this up at Best Buy, and when I picked it up, hadn't seen the movie yet. If you remember, at that time, the trailers for Kong were just looking spectacular. Kong has to definitely be the worst movie that had the best trailers going into it. But yeah, the movie absolutely sucked. It was horrible. I'm not gonna spend time reviewing it, but the movie was just a piece of crap, and I don't want this pop anymore. If any of you are interested in doing a trade for some other pops, just let me know. But it was I think it was $15. I'm sorry to say, it was $15. Down the toilet, but it was a good strategy on Best Buy's part to put these big, chunky, meaty pops on the shelf in the movie section before the movie came out. And yeah, I like the 6-inch ones. I only have one other 6-inch pop, and you can't see it on the shelf there. It's on the next level, but I have the 6-inch Baymax pop from Big Hero 6. And I was thinking Kong was going to be a great movie. Kong is a very masculine, dominant creature. I felt, like I needed this to be a man. But the movie sucked. So, it's a horrible piece of memorabilia to have. So I don't want it. If you want to do a trade, let me know. All right, so that's it for the little trinkets and crap, and now we can get on to the movies. I'm going to start with a couple of DVDs because no one cares about those. So this first movie is actually one that should be in this update because this is the first time I've seen it since I've picked it up, and that's Blood Diamond, and I never saw the movie before I picked it up. Leonardo DiCaprio movie, and I picked this up years ago, I think back in 2012, and just got around to watching it now, but I didn't enjoy it at all. A slow movie, much less of an action movie than I had anticipated. I thought DiCaprio's character in this was just a scumbag. I didn't care for it. And now these next two are not movies that I've watched for the first time since picking them up and adding them to my collection, but I don't believe I've ever talked about them in an update before, so I'm going to start doing that for DVDs that I do have in my collection that I haven't shown in an update. If I've watched them recently, I'm going to include them in an update just to have the chance to talk about some more movies that I wouldn't otherwise be able to. So this first one is Drill Bit Taylor, and I've had this in my collection for a long time. I think since 2010, I believe, and I'd seen the movie before then too, but I love this movie. I think it's hilarious. If you have not seen this, and I'm sure not enough people have seen this, but watch it. The end fight scene is just hilarious. One of the most hilarious scenes in any movie for me ever. It just never fails to bust my gut, and I love the movie. I always called this like the junior high version of Superbad. They're not actually in junior high; they're freshmen in high school, but they look like little kids. In Superbad, they're seniors, so it is like a less mature kind of raunchy high school comedy. But I just love it. I could watch this thing a couple times a year and I would never get tired of it. There's a hilarious rap battle. And actually, now that I think of it, this easily could have been a prequel to Superbad. I don't think, yeah. Oh, yeah, here on the back, the main kid there, the chubby one, he's got that same kind of fro going on that, what's his name, Jonah Hill has in Superbad. And these other kids kind of, this kid with the glasses, that's kind of your Michael Cera. He could also be, Faggle. And this kid as well, they're kind of interchangeable. Each one could be either Fogel or whatever the hell their names are. But amazing comedy. I love it. It makes me want to be, in high school again. A hilarious movie, so check that one out. And then we have The Master of Disguise, which I know a lot of people hate, and I should feel shame for loving this movie, but I don't, because, screw that. You got to be, honest with yourself and who you are as a movie viewer, and I just love this thing. I actually saw it in the theater way back whenever this came out, like 2002 or something. But I just I think it's an amazing comedy. Stupid, yes, of course. It's not one of the 10 best movies of all time. I never say that, but definitely one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time. Maybe just because I grew up with it, but even when I watch it today, it never fails to make me just laugh hysterically. I love it. And I think people, I see a lot more people on YouTube, they're very unwilling to kind of accept movies for what they are. A movie like this, they will shame it, they will shun it, but it's supposed to be a funny, ridiculous movie, and sometimes you just have to accept that. And I feel like it really, works. The humor comes off naturally. It's not like a movie where they're trying to be funny and it just isn't. It's a movie that's just way over the top and ridiculous, but it is funny still. So anyway, I love this. It's in my top 10 favorite movies of all time, The Master of Disguise. And now on to the actual movies. We're going to start with some animated movies. Ratatouille. This was one of the titles that I picked up when I joined the Disney Movie Club for the first time back in 2013. And it didn't come with a slipcover. But Ratatouille, I watched this maybe about 6 months ago, something like that. And I had seen it, once before, like 10 years ago, and maybe saw it a couple times since then. But I think this is one of the underrated Pixar movies. I think it stands the test of time. For me, it's up there with The Incredibles, Finding Nemo, those really iconic Pixar classics. I love Ratatouille. It's a really charming, beautiful movie. I can't say much more about it. Great Pixar movie. And then up next, we have this piece of crap, The Muppet Movie, the original classic. And the best thing about this movie is the slipcover. It's shiny. It looks like it could be, some casino wallpaper or something. But this thing, it was so painful and tedious to watch. And I actually should have included this in my last update. I just forgot to. But I saw this back in like August of 2015. And I had it in my collection since, I think, 2013. Summer of 2013, I believe, is when it came out. But yeah, I'd never seen this before. I was never really knew much or had seen much stuff of the Muppets. And it was just, I did not find this entertaining at all. They're on this like long road trip and they sing these stupid sing-along songs, and it's horrible. It was so bad. I still have Muppet, the Great Caper, and the Treasure Island double pack that was released on Blu-ray a couple years ago. Still need to watch that one, and I'm kind of dreading it because this sucked so much. But yeah, I never want to watch this again. That was garbage. And another now on to the live action movies, but another Disney movie, Pirates of the Caribbean. I had this Blu-ray. When did I pick this up? I don't know. It might have been. It was like 4 or 5 years ago, like the other titles I just mentioned. But this is a movie I loved as a kid. I do have the DVD, and it's one that I watched over and over. As a kid, and rewatching it now, as is the case with a lot of movies that I loved when I was young, and I rewatch now. It just doesn't come off the same. They're just not as good most of the time. However, it's still a way better movie than any of the other Pirates movie, and I say that confidently without even having seen all of the other Pirates movies. I haven't seen 4 or 5, but it's still a nice story, a good pirate's tale. I don't know. The cinematography rewatching this kind of threw me off. I didn't really like the look of the movie, the cinematic look of it. There's just something about it that just didn't really click for me rewatching it now. But it's not to say it's a bad movie. It just didn't, wow me like it did when I was a kid. But I think this is enough Pirates movies in my collection from this franchise, so I don't really have a desire to ever pick up any of the other ones. Tarzan, I picked this up on Black Friday. It was this past Black Friday of last year, and I didn't see this one in the theaters, and it was a good movie. It surprised me. Not a great movie, but kind of a nice, different telling of Tarzan. In this movie, Tarzan goes back to the jungle, so he's already living in London. He has his family, and he has to go back to assist Samuel L. Jackson on his expedition. And you have... what's the guy's name? King Schultz in it. What the hell's his name? But yeah, there were some really nice action scenes in the movie. I loved the plot point of the tribe, the native tribe in the movie who had an issue with Tarzan, and there was some family. There's some family beef there. They used the slow-mo effect in this. Wasn't used to perfection, but I thought overall it was a pretty decent movie. I liked it. Margot Robbie was gorgeous in it, but pretty decent movie. I think that one's underrated. All right, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, another movie that should have been in my last Blu-ray update, but I missed it. This is one that I loved as a kid. I actually saw it in the theater when it came out in, I believe, 2005 is when this came out. And one of my more memorable movie theater experiences, actually, because the reel cut out during the showing of this. We only had to wait like 5 minutes until they got it running again. But, that was something memorable. But I loved this movie when I was young, and I always thought it was a great action spy movie, and it's one that I rewatched a lot over the years after seeing it in the theater. But watching it now, the movie just kind of sucks. It feels really flat. I didn't enjoy any of the action, and I knew that people looked down on this movie for a long time, but going so many years without watching it, I didn't really believe them, but yeah, now that I've seen it as an adult, it's crap. So that's not one we're gonna talk about anymore. But no, these are good movies. This is a Dirty Harry double feature with The Enforcer and Sudden Impact. And to be perfectly honest, all the Dirty Harry movies, to me, not because they're bad, they just kind of bleed together, and I can never remember which one is which. But I do have the other double feature with the first two, and this is 3 and 4, and then they have not released the Deadpool yet on Blu-ray. But these are great, kind of old school street crime movies. So I really enjoy them. Great action. I like watching these with my dad. So that's good stuff. And continuing with the kind of, I guess, spy kind of secret agent genre, we have a whole bunch of Bond movies. I picked these up Black Friday of 2015, 2 years ago. They had them on sale for $3.99 at Best Buy, almost every single title in the franchise. And yeah, since my last update, I've gotten a chance to catch up on a lot of these. So we're going to talk about them. License to Kill. This is one that everyone was telling me was one of the better movies, and I thought this was total crap. This thing sucked. I don't know why people think this is a good action movie or one of the more action-packed movies of the series, because it absolutely isn't. It's one of the least action-packed, to be honest. I really did not get any entertainment or enjoyment out of this film until the final fight scene. It was just a total hokey, boring piece of crap. So, yeah, one of my least favorite Bond movies for sure. And if you are one of the people that love that movie, please feel free to explain to me why I should, because I just don't get it. Octopussy. Now, this is one, when I was buying these movies and just getting into the older Bond films, when they had them on sale at Best Buy leading up to Spectre, I wanted to, they had them, they sold them with a Spectre ticket at Best Buy, so I was trying to decide and do research to find out which ones were the better ones, which ones I should get, and then I eventually picked them all up on Black Friday. But I was looking at all of the lists online ranking the films best to worst, and this was like lowest on the list or close to it on almost every list I saw. And I completely disagree. I mean, it's hilarious, it's over the top and ridiculous, but I love Octopussy. You had like killer clowns in this. You had female ninjas. It was just a fun movie, action-packed all over the place. Like clowns and ninjas and everything. This is one of my favorite Bond movies. I know it's ridiculous, but I was just really entertained by this one. Definitely, way more so than by License to Kill. A View to a Kill. This is one. I think this is the one I watched most recently of these Bond films that I'm showing you. But this was a really fun one. I really liked the villain in here, played by Grace Jones. Being an African woman, and with her very kind of distinct hairdo. I just thought she was a very distinct, memorable villain. She was really cool, and there's so many of these Bond movies that I can't really remember what happened in each one, but I do remember really enjoying this one, so that's one of the better ones. The Spy Who Loved Me, this one I really don't remember much. Looking at the back of it, looks like Jaws was in this one, and he was also in another one here that I watched. But yeah, I like this one. This one is rated pretty highly on most lists that I've seen, but yeah, I can't remember too well what happened in this one, or even what the premise was. But I remember liking this, and thinking the action was good. And I know there was that crazy like spider submarine thing, which was a pretty cool visual piece. So yeah, that was a good one. Moonraker. This one I loved, and like Octopussy was another one that was rated very low on most of the lists that I saw, but this was a really fun one. And this is the one with Jaws, because I see him on the back here. And this was also the one with that short, like that midget Japanese guy. And I'm sorry, I guess dwarf is the more appropriate name for those people. But the fight scene with Bond and that henchman, I thought was just hilarious, but it was also enjoyable action. And there's like this there's this machine. It's like a gravity machine where he sits in a little pod and it spins around, in like this lab setting in the movie. And that was just kind of a hilarious, really over the top, thrilling scene. So I really enjoyed Moonraker, and like Octopussy, probably one of my favorite Bond films of the older ones. So that's another one that I feel very differently about than what most people, how most people seem to feel. The Man with the Golden Gun, another good one. Maybe not as good as Moonraker or Octopussy, but another one I really enjoyed. Yeah, there's this guy on an island that Bond eventually ends up on, and he has this like maze room, and it's kind of like a game, kind of like a haunted house type thing, where there are a bunch of mirrors and mazes, and they're basically in a game of trying to kill each other in this room, and that's the finale of the movie. And that was pretty memorable and entertaining. Again, for the rest of the movie, I don't really remember a whole lot, but this is another one I really enjoyed. All right, now, actually, I skipped some animated movies, so we have to work backwards here a little bit. I guess we messed the video up, but we're going to continue on. The Beauty and the Beast digibook. I already had a copy of the Blu-ray release, and I picked that one up in 2012. This came out at the end of 2015, and when I watched that, the original Blu-ray release copy that I picked up, that was probably the first time I'd seen the movie in like 15 years or something. So I loved the movie at that point, and I think just knowing how great it was, and just having really high expectations for rewatching it a couple of years later when I picked this up, it just didn't do as much for me, but I still recognize it as one of the best Disney movies of all time. It would be in my top 10 Disney movies. So yeah, just a great movie. It's a classic. Not much to say there, but it is a cool release. I like these Target digibooks. And by the way, I should have mentioned at the top, I've unboxed all of these movies. So if you want to see unboxings of any of these in detail, I will link all of those videos in the description. So check those out. And now this next movie, this thing is just a masterpiece. The Iron Giant, such a beautiful movie. It was long overdue that they put this out on Blu-ray. I actually saw it in the theater I was really, really young. I must have been about, 5 or something, just really young. But man, I had such a beautiful experience rewatching this. I didn't remember anything about the movie other than the finale. Um, and actually, I've told this story before, but when I was in the theater watching the finale, and I'm just going to kind of spoil the ending here a little bit. So if you haven't seen it, skip ahead a little bit. But in the finale, the army drops this bomb to try to kill the Iron Giant, and the boy he tells the Iron Giant that the bomb is going to kill everyone if it lands. So that's when the Iron Giant he flies up and he stops the bomb and sacrifices himself to save the people. And I remember tearing up as like a 5-year old in the theater when I saw that. I think I actually started crying, or after the movie, I was really emotional, and I needed my mother to console me as a young boy. But yeah, that was a really memorable movie experience for me, and I didn't get emotional actually at all watching that scene at the end, but just the entire story about this kid befriending the robot, that made me emotional. And their relationship and them having to like stay in hiding and not get caught by the government. That whole relationship and story, I thought was really beautiful. And visually, the animation, I really enjoyed. I thought was great. So just a really beautiful movie. Yeah, I loved it. So definitely check this one out. Pick it up on Blu-ray. And it's too bad, I think, that we never got a sequel. I think most people, would probably say that this shouldn't have a sequel. They you don't want to turn this into a franchise, and you don't want it to become corporatized. But the way they ended it, they left the door open for a sequel, and I just kind of want to see more of the story because it was beautiful and I loved it. But yeah, amazing movie. All right, and then we have the Pokemon 1 through 3 Steelbook. And I had seen all these movies when I was a kid. I was a big Pokemon fan. I collected cards, and as I'm sure a lot of you who've kept up with my channel over the past year or so have seen, my channel kind of turned into a Pokemon card channel for a little bit. And fortunately for all of us, that's over for the most part. I have a backlog of some videos I still have to upload, but yeah, that's over. But these movies, the Steelbook came out back in, it was March of last year, actually, so around the time that I made my last update. But I'd seen all of these movies before, and I believe I saw them all in the theater. Rewatching them, I really liked the vibe and like the setting of most of these movies, especially like was it the second movie when they're on that island and they have those the mythical birds, and just there's this very kind of eerie, tense kind of setting on that stormy island, very kind of magical and fantastical that I really like. And it's just kind of a cool vibe for these very mythical kind of stories. But as far as the actual content of the movies, I just found them kind of disappointing. Like, I used to watch the show all the time, and all I can remember of that show is like every episode, like took place in the arena, and it was all battles between the Pokemon. And I actually remember when I was in I think second grade, we wanted to I think some kids wanted to dress up as Pokemon for Halloween, and the teacher said no because it was too violent. And these movies just gave the complete opposite vibe. Like, there was very little combat between the actual Pokemon in any of these movies. It's really about the storytelling. So they felt kind of a little empty, a little lacking for me. But like I said, the setting, the tone, I could appreciate. So yeah, not great, but okay movies, and it was nice. It's always nice revisiting movies from your childhood like that. All right, now we got some horror movies, so we're moving back into the live action movies. So I got a couple horror movies, and I have this double feature of Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers and Halloween H2O. Picked this one up Black Friday of 2013, and I'd seen these movies, of course. I was big into the Halloween franchise, and for me, it's really the only respectable horror franchise, from that time period, and deservedly so. It's a great franchise. But funny thing about rewatching this double feature, H2O was always the one of the later sequels that I loved, and Curse of Michael Myers was one that I just saw as kind of a throwaway film in the franchise. But rewatching this, I actually thought H2O was not as good, and Curse of Michael Myers, I really kind of got into this kind of satanic mythology and lore of Michael Myers, and I thought the whole thing they did with that satanic cult and his origin story, I thought was pretty cool and rather intelligent, actually. And I thought it was too bad that they kind of left it there. The ending to The Curse of Michael Myers, they really could have gone on with a whole nother slew of movies after that, explaining his origin and his association with this cult. So I appreciate Halloween 5 a lot more now, and H2O, unfortunately, I don't know, it's just not as good. It's kind of dipping more to the level of Resurrection for me, but I'm kind of glad that that kind of gave me a new appreciation for Curse of Michael Myers. Let me set these down so we don't have a little accident here. You don't want to damage your Blu-rays. Next horror movie, Psycho 2. This movie I saw on TV, actually, on AMC's Fear Fest, which I used to watch a lot back in my younger years, around like 2005 through 2007, and that's what introduced me to a lot of these old school horror films. And I actually saw this before I ever saw the original Psycho, and when I saw it for the first time, I loved it. Just this great kind of dark comedy, eerie cheesiness to it. And then when I saw the original Psycho, I realized, how different they were. But I always say that, if you want to watch a horror masterpiece, watch Psycho. But if you want to see a fun, really cheesy movie, watch Psycho 2. Rewatching it now, as I've been saying with most of these movies that I really liked when I was young, not as great for me, but I still think it's a fun, cheesy movie. A good kind of alternative to what the original Psycho was. So I like it, and I actually have seen Psycho 3 since watching this. I picked up the DVD triple feature because on Blu-ray, Psycho 3 is really hard to find now. This was even kind of hard to find and pricey, but Psycho 3 is that's another kind of cheesy follow-up, but that's another enjoyable Psycho movie. So I'm kind of rediscovering this Psycho franchise, and 2 through 4. I haven't seen 4 yet, but it seems like those are very different movies from the first Psycho movie, but I'm enjoying them. So check out the Psycho sequels if you haven't seen them. And then next up, just an incredible movie, Shutter Island. When did I pick this Blu-ray up? Not too long ago, maybe. Or actually, no, I picked this up just like within the last year. I'd never owned it before, but I saw this back like when it was originally released on home video, like 2010, 2011. And then we actually watched this in my high school psychology class. And that class, I always mention movies that I watched in that class here in my videos. We watched a lot of good movies in that class. Not movies you would necessarily think about as movies you would watch in a class like that, but and we watched like Gattaca and Good Will Hunting. Anyway, Shutter Island, amazing psychological thriller, and I'm gonna get a little spoilery here. So again, if you haven't seen it, skip ahead. But what the movie wants you to believe, and what the logical kind of obvious conclusion is in this movie is that Leonardo DiCaprio, his character, was crazy, right? And he had made up this story in his head that he's a police officer investigating this missing persons case on the island. But since the first time I watched this movie, and even now, and I know I'm gonna sound like an ass saying this, and it's gonna come off as me just trying to be a contrarian, which I'll admit it's true. I like to defy the accepted beliefs and the accepted conclusion about this movie. But what I've maintained since the first time I saw this movie is that the guy is not crazy. He was actually an FBI agent, and he was investigating this case. And just through the power of persuasion, they convinced him that he was crazy. Everyone on the island, and that's a theme in the movie. That's something he mentioned early on was, and also when he found Rachel in the cave, she said, I can't remember who said it, but they said something to the effect of all they have to do is say you're crazy and no one will believe you. And to me, that's kind of something that the filmmaker wants you to think about. It's not the obvious conclusion, but that's the theme of the movie, right? Is that even as the viewer, it's so obvious to you that this guy just made up this whole personality in his head, but I think that just speaks to the power of being able to convince someone and getting in their head just through verbal communication and mob psychology. If everyone's telling you you're crazy and you're sick, you're gonna believe it, right? So I just wanted to throw that out there, and I would actually love to do like a Stuckman style analysis of this, where I just pull out a couple of scenes and pieces of evidence that I think support my theory. But yeah, I do not agree with the accepted explanation of this movie. And yeah, I want to be different. I want to be able to think for myself, be one of the last free-thinking men in America. So next movie, Unbreakable. Just picked this up on Blu-ray actually within the last couple of months after I saw Split. It was because I saw Split, and I don't know who wouldn't know that Split is connected to Unbreakable. at this point if you're watching a video like this. But after watching Split and knowing that they're gonna make the sequel now, that's what prompted me to go pick this up. And I had seen this already 2 years ago. So, and I really liked the movie when I saw it, so I had to pick it up. And rewatching it didn't do quite as much for me, but it's still a really cool movie and just a very different kind of superhero movie. A very different superhero movie from the modern day big blockbuster type of superhero movies. I would actually say this is more on the level of something like Watchmen than something like the Avengers or whatever. But I just really like the whole kind of comic book lore and this kind of mythology that connecting like comic books to the gods. That whole kind of that kind of storytelling layer that's kind of underneath the surface. That's kind of the premise for this whole movie, is that superheroes are saviors. They're kind of they're descendants of the gods, and they come here to save us. So I like that aspect of the movie. Split, I did not like at all, really. I thought it was... I thought the fact that it was connected to Unbreakable and we're gonna get a sequel now because of Split. The fact that it just breathed new life into the franchise, to me, was the only redeeming quality about Split, because other than that, as a standalone movie and story, I thought Split kind of sucked. And I can give you a few reasons why real quick. So for one thing, the main character played by James McAvoy, I thought that the different personalities he portrayed were not very memorable characters. I thought the young boy Hedwig, I believe his name was, that was a really cool performance by him. But the woman and I guess the woman was like the only other really memorable character from what I remember. I just didn't think it was that cool. It's just kind of the same guy, putting on these different outfits and stuff. The movie really played up this idea that you can change your biology through these different personalities that you can take on in your head. And I thought it would have been it was really a missed opportunity that they didn't have him actually like grow hair when he was the woman. So I thought that would have been really cool. And then they almost went to the opposite extreme, the whole beast thing. I just thought was dumb. I mean, at that point, it was just completely unrealistic. I mean, this was such a grounded movie, for the majority of it. It was just a kidnapping story with this freak who had multiple personality disorder, and then for him to turn into this monster. I know it's connected to Unbreakable, but we didn't know it at that point, so they can't get credit for having this guy be like a supervillain in this universe if we never knew it up to that point. So I thought that was stupid. They turned into the Beast. And another thing, I guess a spoiler about the movie, I've already mentioned a few spoilers, but the fact that they said this guy had like 100 or whatever different personalities that he recorded on video, when they couldn't even show us like 3 really good different characters. That just came off as dumb. Like, why didn't he just have 1 million different personalities? So, and the other thing was that this was a kidnapping story, right? what I think would have been amazing, what I really wanted to see is for the girl to use one of the alternate personalities to try to help her escape. And they teased that a little bit, but it never really went anywhere. I thought it would have been really cool if this Hedwig character, the girl, really could have used him to like try to escape. Like she actually, if she actually got to another room or another area of where she was being held captive, and like he helped her to keep advancing like towards wherever she had to get to escape. And him, if he went back and forth between these different personalities, one trying to save her and the other trying to kill her, that would have been a really cool way to see the story play out. And I just thought it was a big missed opportunity, and the direction that they took the story with the beast and everything, again, just totally unrealistic and really dumb. So I didn't like Split. And I guess that was a movie review of Split, so let's move on. Last movie before we get into the superhero movies. The Revenant, the Steelbook picked this up about 8 months ago, something like that, around November or something. And I saw the movie in the theater, and I enjoyed it. Did not think it was great. I thought it was overrated. I won't say that DiCaprio didn't deserve the Oscar, but for me, it's not one of his best movies. I mean, all of his movies are great, right? And not to say his acting was bad, but I would have rather seen him win the Oscar for Wolf of Wall Street or The Departed, which I think are way better movies than The Revenant, and better performances too. I mean, most of his acting here was visual and facial, not verbal, but a good movie. I really like the setting. Wherever they are. Where are they in this movie? Alaska? Yeah, so I like that natural setting. It reminds me a lot of the movie The Gray, and the fight to survive against nature. Really blends well with the setting of this movie. But as far as the story, what I felt watching in the theater and what I still feel. It's just a really kind of simple story, and if you watch the trailer before seeing the movie, there's really nothing else that happens on top of what you see in the trailer. It's just a very simple revenge story, and kind of just becomes a story about this guy's fight, his survival against the wilderness. I would have liked, I guess a little more complexity, another layer of storytelling to this, other than just kind of a very bare bones revenge story. But, still a good movie. There's some okay action scenes. I didn't love them, didn't think they're anything, really outstanding. But it was a solid movie. I'd give it a B, so... fair movie. All right, so now we're transitioning into the superhero movies, but we have one more movie before that, and man, I am excited to talk about this one. Star Wars The Force Awakens. This is the Best Buy Steelbook here, which I think you can still go to Best Buy today and find about 10 million copies of them on the shelves. But man, Star Wars The Force Awakens, I loved the trailer back when they released it, like a year out from the movie, and then when I watched the movie in theater, I loved the movie at that point, and I thought it was like this this great masterpiece, reviving the franchise. And then when I bought the Blu-ray and rewatched it, Man, I just thought it was so disappointing. I thought it fell flat in every aspect. Um, and I just really think it's not a bad movie, but just a very flat, mediocre, lacking movie. Um, it felt very kid friendly and kid oriented to me. Um, yeah, was not dark enough in that trailer. When you see Kylo Ren and you see the army marching. At least I really got this sense of like a dictatorship, and I kind of likened Kylo Ren and his soldiers to like the Nazis, and um, after this franchise being dormant for 30 years since the last meaningful movies in the franchise. I wanted more context. Like I wanted to see Kylo Ren kind of, or at least his henchmen, going through villages and cities, just kind of, you know, um, being tyrants and destroying people's lives and kind of taking people prisoner. I wanted to feel that wrath and that darkness, and I just didn't think we got it. I know the opening scene was like that, but they just kind of pick up with Rey and these random characters doing these random things. I really wanted to get more context, like what has life been like these last 30 years and in space on these different planets, and what, like, how is Kylo Ren and the Republic, or I guess not the Republic, but Kylo Ren and his army, how is this like oppressing people and affecting their lives? And the story just felt very contained. We didn't get that kind of outside scope, and just felt very kid friendly. I thought, from the action scenes to that whole thing with Harrison Ford on the ship with that worm monster crawling through the ship. That was like so out of place. That scene stuck out so badly and just didn't fit. I just thought, and Harrison Ford. That's another thing. His performance in here, I kind of denied it when I saw it in the theater. I wanted to be happy that Harrison Ford was back in a Star Wars movie, but I thought it was pretty obvious that the guy didn't want to be there by his performance. It really felt like low effort. I know the dude's really old, but to me it just looked like he was there to get a paycheck. But just overall, I thought a pretty kid-friendly movie, not dark enough. And Kylo Ren, he needed to keep that mask on. Once he took that off, he just became a total, huggable teddy bear of a character. Completely ruined, any kind of darkness or evil sense you got from this guy. And for them to do that in the first movie of this trilogy, I thought was terrible, because this guy, he should have been like the new Vader for this franchise. So was not happy with this. Thought it was a mediocre film, and I'm hoping that The Last Jedi is going to be a great Star Wars movie. But sadly, from the trailer, I know they're not showing a lot, but I didn't really like the trailer that they put out for it. So I don't really know about this new Star Wars franchise. I know everyone is going to disagree with me, and everyone thinks it's great, but I'm not really digging it. And I do have Rogue One. I picked up the Steelbook, just haven't watched it yet. But to me, that tone that we got in the trailers, and seems like they really changed up the movie from what we saw in the trailers. But that tone that they're going for, that really dark, gritty, war tone that we got in those first couple trailers, that to me could have been, the best Star Wars movie we've ever seen, or at least other than Empire. That's the kind of darkness that I want in this universe. So I was really disappointed that even though I liked Rogue One, I was disappointed they couldn't bring that tone to that movie, and hopefully we can still get something like what we saw from those initial trailers. All right, on to the superhero movies now. Let's see. Let's start with a DVD, Batman Forever, and look at this. It's a snapper case. You don't see those anymore, do you? Now, I had seen this movie a long time ago when I was young, and this DVD, I actually bought it from Blockbuster back in 2004 or 3, something like that. But, I didn't remember the movie, and I watched this about a year ago for, the first time in 15 years or something. And from the first 10 minutes, I know this is going to sound so stupid, but from the first 10 minutes, I actually thought that the movie was going to be great. That opening action scene, I just thought was so stylish and just so entertaining. I don't know if we've had, a Batman action scene since then that was as entertaining, with Nolan's realism and even Zack Snyder, his very kind of dark tone. I just never felt that excited, that entertained by a Batman action scene. So I love that opening scene, but then after those first 10 minutes, everything just went completely downhill from there. I thought everything about it was terrible. The whole Bruce Wayne mansion and him adopting Robin. I couldn't believe that I was watching a Batman movie that was so unrecognizable as Batman to me. I thought I was watching a Lifetime movie or something. Jim Carrey, horrible. The whole movie was just terrible after those first 10 minutes. So and apparently from what I heard from Ben, the movie collector, who doesn't talk to me anymore, he said this movie was made for gay people. So I don't know what that says about me, because I liked the first 10 minutes, but I can believe it. And it's a horrible movie and deserves all the hate it gets. All right, now we're on to more DC movies, the DC animated movies, and I always pick up the Steelbooks whenever the latest installment is released. But this is Teen Titans: The Judas Contract. This is actually the most recent one to come out. Pretty cool looking Steelbook, but this I thought was fun. Had some decent action. I've never been really knowledgeable or really a fan of the Teen Titans stuff. Never watched the show as a kid. It was just okay to me. Some nice action. The story was kind of a throwaway story. Deathstroke was in this, and he was pretty cool, but kind of throwaway villains still. And to me, the Justice League versus Teen Titans movie that came out a couple of installments before this was a more memorable movie, but even that one wasn't that big of a fan of. Yeah, to me, it's just okay. Decent, but not something I'd be revisiting over, the better movies in the DC animated universe. And the next movie that's coming out, which I watched the trailer for, Batman and Harley Quinn. It sounded cool when I was, watching the preview and hearing the filmmakers talk about it, but when I saw the actual footage for the movie, man, does that thing look terrible or what? They're trying to make it look like, Batman the animated series, but Batman has never looked blockier in that movie. Nightwing too. I mean, they just look so ugly. Their heads, they just look, completely fake and blocky. Visually, I think that movie just looks awful, and I don't know why they had to make it in that style. If they would have made something in the style of The Killing Joke, even though that was a horrible movie, but something in that style, or like Flashpoint Paradox, a dark, mature kind of tone. That Batman Harley Quinn, or Arkham Asylum, they made a Batman Harley Quinn movie, that same style of animation and tone. That would be incredible, but I don't know, the DCAU, they're just really hit and miss. They had a run there for a while where they put out, good movies one after the other, with like Batman versus Robin, Gods and Monsters, and there was another good movie in there, but now it just seems like they're back on a mediocre run. So I never have a lot of confidence in all of their movies. Hopefully they can put out another great one, but really it's just been Flashpoint Paradox, Batman versus Robin, and really no other great movies to me, in the whole franchise. So I don't think they're ever gonna get to a point where each movie they put out is really a masterpiece, unfortunately. And then Justice League Dark, I don't know what they were doing with this. This was so terrible of a movie. They really missed the mark with this one. This has nothing to do with Justice League. It has nothing to do with Batman. They just threw Batman in there so they could, sell this movie, because I would have had no interest at all in this if I didn't think it was connected to the Justice League or Batman in some way. They're these whoever these characters are, they're like Satanists and like dark magic kind of people. And I actually thought in the action scenes they incorporated that aspect well, like their magic powers and their abilities, and made the action scenes kind of cool. But I just didn't give a crap because I didn't know who anyone was. I didn't know these characters. I had no idea, what the story was about, start to finish. I never picked up on what was going on. And then at the end of the movie, this girl here, I don't even know her name. She was Batman recruited her to join the Justice League, and I was thinking to myself, like, why? Who gives a crap? No one knows who she is. We don't care about her story. We don't want to see her in the Justice League. So I thought this was a total miss. About me not being able to follow it, you could say I'm dumb, and I don't have any comic book knowledge, and that's true. Like, I'll admit it. But to me, Flashpoint Paradox was a more complex involved deeper story with like multiple timelines and different stuff going on in there. And I never once felt lost in that movie. So to me, that's on the filmmakers. If I have no idea what's going on, that's not my fault. That's because you told a totally crap, incoherent story. So this to me sucked, and just more evidence as to why DCAU, they're never gonna consistently put out great movies. Justice League versus Teen Titans, which I mentioned a little bit already. And yeah, like I said, I'm just not a fan really of the Teen Titans stuff. It doesn't click with me for whatever reason. But to me, this was just a little bit more memorable of a movie than the Judas Contract. Some good action from what I can remember. I just prefer the more mature, darker themes of the Justice League movies. But it was okay. Pretty decent, but nothing that gets me that excited. And then Batman: The Killing Joke. Oh man, this one I thought it was really funny. After the fact, after I saw this, that leading up to the release, everyone on YouTube was saying, this is going to be the best DCAU movie yet, hands down. It's going to be the greatest one of all time. And it absolutely wasn't. Now, I never read The Killing Joke, and I know it's it's considered to be like the greatest comic of all time. I've actually never read any comics. I just it's not something I ever did. I do consider myself, a superhero fan. I watch TV shows, and I know that doesn't mean I have knowledge of the comics, but I feel like I know the characters and their stories and origins, at least as it pertains to the TV shows. Anyway, my point is that this may have been exactly what the Killing Joke comic was. Although I've heard from people in the comic book industry that they didn't like this movie either. But I just wasn't entertained by it at all. I thought it was going to be this epic showdown between Batman and the Joker, and it didn't come off that way to me. I wanted like a physical confrontation, something more like what we got in Batman the Animated Series, but with a better story behind it, and just a boring, uneventful movie, and the way it ended is just like nothing meaningful happened. So I was just bored with it, not entertained. I never want to see it again. I'm not gonna say the movie sucked, but I just didn't get any enjoyment out of it. So to me it was really disappointing. I don't know why they can't just make like a great Batman Joker movie. There's so many different comic books and storylines out there. I know in the animated series, it never really comes. They never really come to blows to the point of death in any of the episodes or the seasons. But why can't they just make like a super dark movie? Where Batman and the Joker have to fight to the death. Like, that's what I really want to see. But, anyways, this I just found very unentertaining and unenjoyable. So, All right, on to some Marvel movies. X-Men Apocalypse. This thing, I'm not going to say it sucked. I actually really liked certain aspects of the movie. The Magneto scene, the whole thing with his family, and then that forest scene, incredible. And it's really sad to me that that scene couldn't be in a great movie that everyone really loved, because that's a wasted scene by a great actor and a great character that is a really integral part of the franchise. It just feels like that no one's going to really appreciate that, because everyone kind of hates this movie. I actually liked it in the theater, and I'm going to sound horrible saying this, but when I saw it in the theater, I actually felt that this was better than Days of Future Past. But after rewatching it, I definitely have thought my view on this. Days of Future Past is a great movie, and to me, that's where the great X-Men masterpiece films are going to end. I think the direction they're taking this with the Dark Phoenix saga, I think, is going to suck. These movies, I don't know what it is. It's probably just, it could just be nostalgia or the fact that I grew up with the films, but those that Bryan Singer trilogy, and I know everyone hates the final film in there, but to me, I never felt like a greater sense of family or unity, or feeling a connection to who the X-Men are, and actually caring about their story and the trials they face. I never felt more connected to them than I did in those Bryan Singer movies. Like, I like First Class, and even Days of Future Past is a great movie, but I want them to go back to what they did with the Bryan Singer movies, and the Dark Phoenix saga, this younger cast of the X-Men, which I thought just came off really kind of flat, and I just couldn't connect with Cyclops and Jean Grey and those characters, and Nightcrawler. I just think this next movie is going to be more of the same of what this was. And Apocalypse, I thought visually looked really cool. I even felt like we finally got a super epic villain that could really end the world and was a big threat to humanity. But I don't know. I didn't really ever understand why Apocalypse was why he's appearing now. I know he's resurrected or whatever that crap was, but I just never really understood why I should care about this movie. It just felt very disconnected from Days of Future Past to me, and just the rest of the X-Men timeline and universe. When they ended Days of Future Past, they I thought they had changed the timeline and they were really going to incorporate that, and instead they just kind of pumped out another crap movie that really didn't have anything to do with the way they wrapped up Days of Future Past. So I don't really understand this movie or what it was. It feels like a very random installment that's trying to kick off this new younger generation X-Men thing, and to me, the best X-Men movies are just those Bryan Singer movies, and I know no one else shares that opinion, but for me, it's true. It's like, Wolverine isn't even in this movie, and, without that, what are the X-Men really? Like, I don't really care about them. So, to me, some, really visually great scenes and some really cool action scenes by the end of the movie, but character-wise and story-wise and how it fits into the greater universe, it just failed on all those levels. So, just kind of a mediocre movie. All right, we have Deadpool, the holiday edition. I picked this up last Black Friday, and I had seen the movie in theaters and I hated it when I saw it. I just thought it was filth, raunchiness, just for the sake of filth, and yeah, I didn't like it. Rewatching it, I actually enjoyed it more. I mean, at least for the action scenes and some of the jokes, I guess knowing that I didn't think much of the movie, I was able to enjoy it more, just be entertained by it. I didn't like it at all, breaking the fourth wall or how they incorporated the X-Men in this movie. It was just way too campy and nonsensical for me. But it's entertaining, and that's really that's the only way that I can look at this movie and really get anything out of it. Is it's just kind of entertaining and fun. But beyond that, I can't care about it. I can't care, how it's gonna relate to any of the other Marvel movies or the Fox X-Men movies. And I kind of hope they don't incorporate this incarnation of Deadpool, because this is just its own thing. It's just a completely over-the-top, raunchy comedy. And, I believe in, being honest with yourself and honest with your feelings. So, I know people hate me for saying this, but I am always honest with myself, and I'm never, ashamed to just be myself. I still think that X-Men Origins, I'm not going to say a better movie. You know what? Fuck it. I think it's a better movie than Deadpool, at least the context within which they portrayed Deadpool in that movie. Them at least trying to tell like a serious story and incorporating Deadpool and his origin story into Wolverine's origin story. To me, that's a lot more respectable than just making like a filthy, vulgar movie. So, even though Origins is kind of terrible and has its own problems, I respect it more for that reason, that they're at least trying to make a serious attempt at including this character in the context of like a serious kind of universe. So yeah, not a big fan, but I can say that it's an entertaining movie at the least. So yeah. All right, Logan. Now I love this steelbook, the Best Buy exclusive. At least the cover art here to me. Love that style of artwork. To me, probably one of the best looking steelbooks ever. I loved the movie when I saw it in theaters. However, I think this thing is being way overhyped. People calling it the best comic book movie ever. It absolutely isn't, at least, for my tastes. Doesn't touch the Avengers or Civil War or The Dark Knight. Like, I don't get it at all. I mean, great movie, yeah. Emotional movie that transcends the comic book genre, sure. Greatest comic book movie of all time, definitely not, in my opinion. But more than that, yeah, great movie, best movie in the I guess the Wolverine trilogy. But I love the beginning of this movie, and I love the ending of it. But that middle section, where they went to the farm and stayed with that family, I thought that whole sequence totally didn't fit the rest of this movie. Thought it really stuck out like a sore thumb, and really kind of brought down the movie for me, and just made the whole thing feel kind of disjointed. and it totally took any emotion out of Xavier's death for me. The fact that they knew they were being tracked by these killers and they decided to stay with this family and put them in danger. And then the fact that, I believe it was, I don't remember who got killed first, but the son of, those farmers, he got killed, right before or after Xavier gets killed. I felt bad for that family and for Xavier to die along with them in the situation that was totally avoidable. It just, to me, totally killed any emotion that I should have felt, any sympathy for Xavier. Because, I felt like I felt bad for the family. I felt like Logan had, brought it upon them. So they messed that up. And yeah, I mean, it's a nice story, but all these Wolverine movies just completely kind of, like I was saying with X-Men Apocalypse, they're just completely unrelated. Their timelines, and you can't make sense of any of these Fox X-Men movies. How they fit together and how they fit, between one another. But to me, like X-Men Origins, again, I just love that was an X-Men origin story and it explained stuff in the Bryan Singer universe. And to me, I love the relationship between Logan and the girl in the movie, but I just didn't feel like that this was going to really lead to any kind of future meaningful story. I know they're making the New Mutants movie, which is going to come out next year, and that should be cool, but it's just kind of like they threw Logan in this kind of random story to kill him off and then take off with the New Mutants. But as far as the character of Wolverine, I definitely like that. I appreciate that they gave us the violence and the brutality that we never got in any of the other X-Men movies. So that was great. The action was great. It's a very simple story, and I do like that. Not every movie has to be connected to like a greater universe and fit into other films, but I don't know, just with that middle sequence that I talked about that I didn't like, and the fact that they just kind of killed off Logan without kind of connecting him to any of the other X-Men characters. I guess they all died from what Xavier told us in this movie. He had killed the rest of the X-Men, but I don't know. Apocalypse having come out just like a year before this movie, and just not really knowing how we ever got to this point where Logan and Xavier are the last of the X-Men. Again, just feels kind of disconnected from any greater universe, and that to me is I always kind of look for that. But again, the movie itself is entertaining, good. The best portrayal of Wolverine we've ever gotten. So I can appreciate all that, but I still have problems with it that really keep it from being even in the conversation of the best movie of all time for me. So that's how I feel about it. Let me know if you agree. All right, now Civil War. This to me was an amazing movie, and I still have problems with it. The villain and who the villain turned out to be and his whole motivation to me was just a complete throwaway, total throwaway villain. The Marvel villains continue to suck. Ultron, the guy in this movie, and all of the side, Marvel movies as well. But it did not matter to me that the villain sucked, because I was so engaged with the main storyline here, the conflict between Iron Man and Captain America, that I didn't care that once they revealed who the villain was, he turned out to be nobody. It didn't take away from the rest of the movie for me, because that Tony Stark storyline with his parents, and the Winter Soldier, I thought was just perfect. I love that. I was so engaged with the story, and just such an entertaining and satisfying action movie. The action in this was just so good. It's a nonstop action movie, and yeah, just great action with a great story. I absolutely loved it. To me, the Avengers, being the first movie that just kicked the whole thing off, and them getting that so right. To me, it's Avengers is still number one, but to me, in the MCU, this is easily number two. I just loved it. I loved the introduction of Black Panther into the universe. Another thing I didn't like, the airport scene really felt kind of kid friendly in hindsight. They're basically like still friends, going into that battle, and even during the battle, the banter between Captain America and Spider-Man. Like, you just know that they're not going to fight to the death, which is disappointing. Like, if they could have taken this to, a really dark level, like where The Dark Knight went, we could be talking about the greatest comic book movie of all time, greater than The Dark Knight. Like, if Rhodes had actually died, if Winter Soldier had actually killed him, that would have been incredible. And that's what they should have done. Really made it dark. So yeah, the airport scene was very entertaining, very fun, but it just didn't have that gravity to it, because you knew they weren't actually gonna kill each other. But still an incredible movie. I loved it. Again, the Tony Stark storyline I thought was really emotional. And the final battle between him and Captain America was great. And I can't wait for Avengers Infinity War. Them having $1 billion budget, and all these superheroes, the Guardians of the Galaxy, coming into this for the first time. I think it's just going to be such a spectacle. And I think there's no way that that movie isn't just the most special experience that we've ever seen in film. So very excited for that, as well as Black Panther and whatever else is going to come out of this. I'm really excited, but this was definitely a great movie. All right, now kind of the counterpart to Civil War. Another very a controversial movie that came out just before Civil War, Batman versus Superman. Now, this movie, to me, it sucks, and I have not changed my opinion on this movie one bit from when I saw it in the theater to rewatching it twice now on Blu-ray. I still think the movie is just a total letdown, and it totally sucks. And I kind of sensed it going into it. That first little teaser trailer that they put out like a year before this came out, I thought was amazing. Had such this dark tone to it. And then that trailer that they put out like 6 months. It was December of 2015 that when that first full length trailer came out, was just terrible. It felt like, an energy drink commercial, honestly. Where they revealed Doomsday and they just had things blowing up and cars crashing and everything, and Batman holding a gun. When they released that trailer, I knew that this movie was just going to totally suck. But it sucked for different reasons than that trailer suggested it would. The whole court dynamic of this movie, Superman being on trial and Batman, having this conflict that just came out of nowhere with Superman, totally stupid and unset up, unexplained, and just boring. This movie is absolutely boring. I do not care about anything that happens in this movie before the showdown between Batman versus Superman, which I actually thought was really good, even though it was short and everyone complains about how short it was. I still really enjoyed the face-off between them in that battle. And then, the battle that happened after that where they, go to save Lois and Martha. But they just had no story to tell here. For one thing, the conflict between Batman and Superman totally made up and fabricated. I mean, we have absolutely zero context as to why, they hate each other. I know the extended edition, they include a little bit more, but whatever. It still sucks, and it's just made up so they could do, Batman versus Superman. There's absolutely no reason as to why they hate each other. Batman's out, taking down child predators and sex traffickers, and then Superman shows up out of nowhere without any previous interaction in the film, and Superman says, stop what you're doing, whatever. And then another thing that really kind of ruined this movie for me is that Batman, we have no context for him in this universe. We know who Superman is from Man of Steel, and we know his whole ordeal with, humanity. He's seen as the savior, but, the army sees him as this threat, and, there's this confusion about whether he's an ally or an enemy. Batman, him coming into this universe for the first time, showing Ben Affleck driving around in his Jeep, so they could, get some ad revenue there. I thought was in the opening of this movie, that's total garbage, a total cop-out. And aside from, him running around in the debris, we have no idea who Batman is or how he relates to society in this movie. And all the other Batman movies, you have, or at least the Nolan films, and what made them so great is you have Jim Gordon, who's this vehicle, this connection for Batman and his relationship with society, and we don't have any kind of character like that for Batman here. We don't know whether people hate him or how society views him, or what his status or his place is in this. And the first scene we get with Batman, he's like a spider. He's like Spider-Man, crawling on the walls, and he's hiding in this corner of a wall, and they just I thought they treated him as kind of a joke. I wanted to see Batman on some actual missions, doing some actual Batman stuff. So yeah, no context for Batman, absolutely no context for his conflict with Superman. Lex Luthor sucked, but was horribly annoying in the movie. Doomsday was stupid. So yeah, I thought this movie's pretty much horrible. I like the action again. The fight between Batman versus Superman, and I really like the action scene with Batman when the warehouse scene. And I just hope that they can give us a more grounded story with an actual villain. I hope they can do that with Justice League, but to be perfectly honest, I think judging by the trailers for Justice League, looks like that movie's gonna suck as well. So I think the DCEU is in big trouble. I think they're going down the toilet. I think Justice League is going to be just as divisive as this movie was. Wonder Woman was good, but it was really safe. So, Justice League is the movie that has to be great to, really drive this forward and, get fans on board. And to me, Justice League just kind of looks, like a mess. And I don't know. This movie to me was just so disappointing. Like, how could you get Batman and Superman in a film together and just completely fuck it up? So I thought this sucked. And Marvel, I don't want to sound like a Marvel fanboy or anything, but their films are just their films are just on such a higher playing field right now than the DC movies. It's just true. All right, so now we're winding down. Got a couple of TV series on DVD, and this is Batman Beyond. Season 1. I picked up all the Batman Beyond series on DVD about 2 years ago. And I finished this one currently on season 2. And I watched the show a lot as a kid, after Batman, the animated series, finished. And I loved this series back then, and I love watching this now. And again, another unpopular opinion, but I think this is better than Batman the Animated Series. I 100% honestly believe that. It's just edgier, darker. The action is more badass and just more mature. The villains, I feel, are more of a threat in this movie. You get a lot more conflict between like the Joker, the New Age Jokers and Batman in this than you did in Batman the Animated Series. And I just really love this series. I like it more than Batman the Animated Series, which is still great, and it's the original, but just as far as which one I enjoy watching more episode to episode, it's definitely Batman Beyond. And if you haven't seen, the pilot episode for this, which is a 2-parter, you have to watch that, because I think the origin story of Batman Beyond and how they introduce the old Bruce Wayne, it's just perfect. Like, I love those 2 episodes. I think they're amazing. They're dark and emotional. It's just a perfect kind of origin for Batman Beyond, and the kind of dark society that he lives in, and how it kind of carries on the fight against crime that the old Batman fought, and passing it on down to him. Watch those 2 first episodes if you haven't seen them. They're incredible. All right, and then Batman the Animated Series. I have Volume 3 here. I picked these up at the same time 2 years ago. I picked up the Batman Beyond series. Again, I watched these a lot as a kid before Batman Beyond came out. I watched a lot of this, and rewatching them now, they're not as good. There are a few really great episodes on all the seasons, but most of the episodes just feel kind of goofy, random villains, and that's why I like Batman Beyond more. But this is still the original, and I definitely respect it. And tone-wise, it's a great, at the time, it was the best, Batman that we ever got. And even today, when I think about Batman, this is the first thing that I think about before I think about Nolan or anything. To me, this defines Batman. And I say that I like Batman Beyond more, but we wouldn't have gotten that without this. So, just a lot of kind of goofy episodes that I could do without. I can't remember, on this season, which episodes really stood out, but on the earlier seasons, like the Mr. Freeze episodes, I really loved the Robin's Reckoning episode was great. I'm looking at it and I can't really remember any, but it's Batman the Animated Series, big part of my childhood, and it's still good. I just Batman Beyond I enjoy more, and this is Batman the Animated Series Volume 4. It's called I think the new Batman Adventures, and I love the team aspect of this with Batgirl and Nightwing. I think a lot of people talk about the new style of animation in this and how they didn't like it, and I can agree. It doesn't feel as dark as the previous seasons, but this might be my favorite. Start to finish. Based on all the episodes in the season, this might have been the one I found most entertaining. And trying to see. Judgment Day, the final episode. All right, so real talk for a second. Real talk. So, Judgment Day, the final episode of Batman the Animated Series Volume 4. Now, I don't think I'd ever seen like that episode before, but I had always known from the Batman Beyond universe, I was aware of the killing of the Tim Drake Robin by the Joker, and before I ever saw the Batman Beyond movie, I think I've seen a clip on YouTube, maybe like almost 10 years ago at this point, of that scene from The Return of the Joker, and when I saw that all those years ago on YouTube, I always thought that clip was from Batman the Animated Series, right? Because it was Tim Drake. He's not in Batman Beyond. I never realized that it was from The Return of the Joker, which I hadn't seen at that point. I have seen that since then, but not at that point. So I always thought that him getting killed by the Joker was in Batman the Animated Series. So having rewatched all the seasons of Batman the Animated Series, I always thought that Judgment Day, as you can see it, as I was watching all these episodes over again, I thought that was that episode where Tim Drake was killed by the Joker, right? That's kind of what it sounds like, the title, Judgment Day. And I had such anticipation watching this season to get to that final episode. And when I finally got there, I realize that that's not what that episode was. And it was at that point that I realized that that clip that I had seen was from Return of the Joker. So what I think they need to do, and what I think would just be a gold mine for them, DC Comics, is if they put out, they made a new animated TV series, and they have to fill in that gap between where Batman the Animated Series ends and where Batman Beyond begins, and you give us all of that backstory that explains in Batman Beyond why Barbara Gordon and why Bruce Wayne have this conflict. You can understand why Bruce Wayne why he has this kind of anger towards this unwillingness for Terry to ever get started as the new Batman, and include that killing of Tim Drake by the Joker. I know they explored that with the Red Hood, but under the Red Hood, but I think if they put out that series connecting these timelines, that would just all the fans would come back. That would be something so epic. And the DCAU movies they're putting out now, like we said, they're just hit or miss. Most of them are pretty mediocre. The Killing Joke, which was supposed to be the most epic movie yet, a lot of people, I think the consensus is that it sucked. And I just felt, because I thought that clip was in the animated series, I had such a built-up anticipation for it, that I think that a series where we get that clip and get just everything, they can create all these different stories and adventures that fill in that time, I think would just be something amazing. So let me know what you guys think about that. If there's anyone from the comic book industry, anyone from DC Comics listening to that, and you want to recruit me to be part of that team or the creative process, whatever, shoot me an email here over YouTube, PM me, comment, get on my Facebook. I'd love to be part of making that series. But that's it, guys. This one about 2 hours. Lengthy. I know I droned on there about some of those titles longer than I should have, and I'm kind of low energy now. But you know what? It was a year and a half since my last update, and we're caught up now. I'm gonna be doing these more frequently, so hopefully, maybe a little bit of a bumpy ride there, but yeah, we got back on track. We did an update, and I'm gonna be more active on here from now on. So leave comments about anything I said in the description. Add me on Facebook. And if you want to check out unboxings of any of those movies that I just showed you in this video, I'll have links to all of those unboxings in the description. So thank you guys. Take care. Have a great 4th of July weekend. And I'll see you next time. I think my next videos, or at least as far as movie reviews go, I'm going to be seeing Homecoming and War for the Planet of the Apes, both coming out in the next couple weeks. So those are the summer movies on my watch list, and yeah, I'll be back with reviews for those. Thanks, guys. Next time.